Hello students, this is Faizan Mirza. As you can see, this is a normal alveoli shown to you in the figure towards the left side, and the other figure shows to you the emphysematous alveoli. You can see that the emphysematous alveoli, or the alveoli of a person suffering from emphysema, the alveoli are collapsed. They are distended alveoli. You can see the diameter of this alveoli and compared to the diameter of the normal alveoli. So this you can see that the numbers of alveoli are just quite less here. Here the alveoli are quite good in number. The respiratory membrane is thin. There the respiratory membrane shows a scarring here. It shows that it has thickened over the years. So there it means that this must be undergoing some kind of inflammation, that there must be increased blood flow here. So that's why the blood vessel here have thickened, the tissue here have thickened, and the alveoli is distended. It's more collapsed in emphysema. So what's happening here? This is what we need to discuss, and there are other diseases that will be following up in this very part of the video. This figure here shows to you what happens to an alveoli when inspiration is occurring and when expiration is occurring. You can see during inspiration the alveoli increase in its diameter, and there are these elastin fibers. They add stretchability and the elasticity to the alveoli so they can expand very well. And upon exhalation, upon expiration, these elastic fibers, they retract, they recoil, and when they recoil, the air is pushed out of the alveoli and towards the nose. And what happens in this is a normal alveoli. This is the alveoli of a person suffering from emphysema. So you can see what the feature that you can see, which is very distinct here, is that the elastin fibers seems to have broken down. They are fragmented. The bands are not exactly in the same order as they were here. So they when inhalation is occurring, so the alveoli will expand, yes, but it won't expand fully. And when it retracts or it recoils, it won't recoil fully because the elastin fibers around it, they are not very well functional, or they are not very well aligned in the very same order. So this side of the screen, it shows you the inspiration, what's occurring during inhalation, and this side of the part of the screen that shows to you what's happening in expiration or upon exhalation. So you can see that in a healthy lungs, the elastin protein is already present, and these bands are present around the alveoli, and they allow stretching to occur so that inhalation could be occurring, and so that the well inhalation is occurring, the stretch of alveoli is coming naturally, and the recoil of alveoli can come during expiration. In emphysema, these elastin proteins, they will get damaged, they will be broken, they will be fragmented, and they will not be aligned in the same order. And due to this, the alveoli can stretch, but it cannot recoil. It won't stretch that well. Yes, it can't retract either. The reason is the action of the enzyme elastase. Elastase comes from neutrophils who were coming into the alveoli while migrating from the blood capillary into the alveoli. Why neutrophils were coming? Neutrophils are phagocytes. They are a type of white blood cell that engulf pathogens. So there were pathogens already in the mucus in the alveoli, and this mucus had to be cleared up by the neutrophil. And while this neutrophil was clearing up all this mucus, it had to just clean up the alveoli from the inside. So it had to migrate. It had to follow transmigration from the blood vessel into the alveoli, and to do this, it must release some enzyme which is called as elastase. So this is what's happening in emphysema. This is the alveoli, the blood capillary, the white blood cell, and this white blood cell is primarily the neutrophil that I've discussed, and this is the mucus that ended up inside the alveoli. The alveoli will not have this much mucus, but naturally it won't have this much mucus because mucus travels through the throat because of the action of cilia. It propels the mucus to the throat upwards as the sweeping action of the cilia proceed. But a person suffering from emphysema, the cilia action is compromised and there is less ciliary action. The cilia are probably paralyzed or not working that well in their sweeping action, and too much of mucus is being produced. So mucus starts to descend into the alveoli. As the mucus is descending into the alveoli, it eventually just ends up in the it ends up here, it gets stuck here, and this mucus is rich in protein, it's rich in salt, so and carbohydrate as well. So this mucus become colonized with pathogens, the bacteria and the other pathogens, for example virus or fungi, which can come here. So this causes the disease of emphysema. Now, what the white blood cell which is here, it will get signal from this inflamed alveoli, from the alveoli which is having this mucus accumulated here. So what the white blood cell would do? The white blood cell need to just clear up this mucus. It must clear up the microbes and the particulate matter which have colonized in this region. The white blood cell performs transmigration. It goes out of the capillary. But it can go out of capillary. This is something very normal for a white blood cell to do. It can squeeze out of the capillary into the tissue space. But now it's in the tissue space, it must go inside the alveoli. To do this, it must break the wall of alveoli, and while doing so, it releases the enzyme elastase, and elastase is the one which kill which just you can say break the elastin fibers, and the endothelial lining is opened slightly so the white blood cell can just squeeze in. White blood cell, when it goes in, it just eats away. This is neutrophil. It just eats away all the pathogen and the mucus. It gets cleared up. So yes, well and good. The pathogen is being cleared. The white blood cells have helped you recover from this colonized mucus that was there. So the white blood cell then needs to come back again. It releases elastase to break these elastin fibers, and it comes back to the white blood cell, happy that it has cleared up all the mucus from here. But what happened, and when this cycle just keeps on happening again and again, because the mucus keeps accumulating here, and since this cycle keeps repeating, the white blood cell goes inside the alveoli, comes back into the blood, and again it gets signal, it goes into the alveoli once again. Every time it goes in, it keeps breaking the elastin protein with the elastase enzyme, and this your alveoli, it keeps losing the elasticity and the stretchability and the recoil. Hence, the Colles alveoli form the alveoli that we just saw previously in the figures. The next associated disease similar is chronic bronchitis that we are discussing here. What happens in chronic bronchitis? Bronchitis is in the inflammation. Here the cilia weakens and the mucus sediments into the lower regions of the respiratory tract, primarily into the bronchioles, less than 2 micrometer particles, which are very tiny. They are irritating the lining of the airways or the bronchioles, and these regions get colonized by the bacteria and viruses, and when they become colonized, this region becomes inflamed. So inflammation occurs. This causes coughing and irritation, and this is the disease where chronic bronchitis have occurred. It is treated using antibiotics. COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. This is seen when a person is suffering from chronic bronchitis and emphysema together, which is seen in smokers, that since they are smoking, they suffer from chronic bronchitis and emphysema together. Chronic bronchitis and emphysema, when they occur together, they end up causing chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Pulmonary disease, why? Because the disease is associated with lungs. Obstructive, because it causes obstruction in the airways, and it obstructs the pathway through which the gas can travel to the respiratory tract, or the gas can get exchanged. So obstruction occur. Chronic means it's long lasting. So in all these three, be it chronic bronchitis is chronic bronchitis, there's a lot of coughing involved. In be it emphysema, be it chronic bronchitis, be it COPD. So these are all the diseases of the pulmonary you can say system. Emphysema, primarily what will happen in emphysema, something that you should keep in mind, is that since this alveoli cannot push the air back, so some of the carbon dioxide stays within the alveoli and it's not exhaled out. So in the next inhalation, when oxygen comes in the alveoli, this alveoli will already have some mucus there. It will already have carbon dioxide, so the oxygen will come and it will mix with carbon dioxide. So the diffusion gradient will be there, but oxygen will not fully go into the alveoli, into the blood, because the alveoli did not have the same amount of oxygen it should have had actually. So this would cause poor oxygenation of blood, and with this poor oxygenation of blood, the poor oxygenation of body regions will occur, and the person who's suffering from emphysema normally will have less oxygen supply to peripheral parts of the body, and the person will have less muscular strength and less stamina, and etc. You can just recall wherever oxygen is required, so oxygen delivery to all the tissues will be affected inevitably, and that would be an inevitable consequence of the collapsed alveoli that could not push out the carbon dioxide as fully as they should have. Here we are discussing some premature deaths among smokers. So we are moving to smoking now. You can see that smoking, this graph shows to you the study from 1990 to 1900 to 1980. It shows you that cigarette consumption in men has been like it's quite more. Lung cancer in men have followed the similar trend. You can see the graphs are following the same trend. Again, here you can see the projections where we are from 2000 to 2024. This is something, and if we just go on this way, so in 2049 we can expect this kind of case here. So you can see there would be too much of burden of disease from smoking. This dark blue here, the color here, it denotes preventable if adults quit having this kind of global cigarette consumption by 2020. And this gray region here, this is preventable if young adults do not start to have will not start smoking by 2020. This is only if and then that's a big if. And this region, this 116 and 140, these are the other premature deaths of tobacco related causes, which include not just smoking, probably chew tobacco as well. You can see the age here and non-smokers and number of people still alive at each stage. So non-smokers of this age were alive, and light smokers and heavy smokers, you can see this age is not very well affected. But if you go to age 40s, you can see there's a decline. In age 50, again there's a big decline. In age 60s, again you can see there's a huge decline here. And if you can just follow this in for the age of like 70, you can again see that for this number have shown a decline in the heavy smokers, and for the people living in 80s, again you can see a similar trend. So you can see that non-smokers, the age, obviously the number of people alive, it decreases as the age increases, but light smoker, the number decreases even more. If heavy smoker, there's a significant decrease in number. So you can just compare this from this, and the number of cigarette smokes per day, like zero, and how many people can still die from cancer related to the pulmonary origin. So these are that zero is 15, and still people can die because of some other radiation factors or from some other genetic predispositions or other cancers which are spreading to the pulmonary region. And you can see that as the number of cigarettes smoked per day increase, the incidence of cancer also increase in the same way. Here you can see how lung cancer develops. This is the human lung tissue. This is a scanning electron micrograph. You can see these are the normal alveoli. You can see this is the gas exchange membrane, and here you can see this. This is the round. This is the this is the ball of cells, which you can see. There are cells, and these cells seem to be really abnormal just compared to the cells in its surrounding. So what happens? This is actually the actual ciliated epithelial lining of the bronchial tree. You see these are cilia and the goblet cells, and there are columnar cells, and these are basal cells, and these are basement membrane, the connective tissue. This is the normal organization. But in response to continuous exposure from cigarette smoke, cilia starts to undergo paralysis, and the abnormal growth of the basal cells. So these basal cells, they undergo abnormal growth. The ciliated epithelium is literally lost, and it turns into squamous epithelium. So this is one kind of tissue turning into another tissue. So the disease is set in, and it's just progressing now. Abnormal cells, they keep on growing. All these black dots are actually nucleus of the abnormal cells. You can see that there is a extreme change in the size and the shape of the nucleus in the cells as well. You can see the increased number of abnormal cells here. So the more the abnormal cells are here, the more chances of a tumor formation would be there, because all the abnormal cells will not eventually form tumor. But yes, many of these can form tumors because they are abnormal to begin with. So let's move on and discuss what's happening in smoking and cancer. So we know that tobacco, this is the basic compound in smoking. It is having components, for example, tar, nicotine, and carbon monoxide. Nicotine and carbon monoxide, they damage the cardiovascular system. Tar is a carcinogen, and it causes the cancer in the respiratory system. Nicotine is the basic drug in tobacco, the drug which causes the person to become addicted, and all the high feelings or the euphoric feelings associated with the nicotine, they all come from tobacco. They all come from the drug nicotine. And carbon monoxide is a product of incomplete combustion. So what's tar doing? It adheres to the epithelial lining of the airways. Being adhered there, it enters into the cell, it damages the DNA, it transforms the oncogenes, and when the oncogenes are affected, particularly P53 or some other genes, they can undergo mutation. And this causes uncontrolled cell division to go on and on and on and on. This causes tumor to form. The tumor is at the primary site. We say that the tumor has set in the lung. This is lung cancer. And it will get a blood supply of its own, a lymph supply of its own, and it will start to undergo metastasis. In metastasis, it would spread through lymph to the secondary site. Secondary tumor starts to grow in distant regions of the body. The cancer has spread, and it takes this entire cascade normally takes about 20 to 30 years to set in. This is why you don't really see many people dying from cancer who are smokers, because they actually die from some other reason, probably heart attack or some other cases. So you just don't really acknowledge that they had lung cancer, and probably if they would have lived for another 5 or 8 years, lung cancer would have taken their lives. And moving on, discussing what effects nicotine would have on generally widespread use of nicotine can cause widespread effects all over the systems. So let's start with the effects here. So there's the main effect that it would have on blood. It would cause platelets and the endothelial lining of the vessels to become more sticky. There would be increased chances of platelet and fat deposition within the vessels, and when this occurs, it narrows the lumen of the vessel, so blood will have less region to flow through. This will raise the blood pressure, and with a raised blood pressure, there will be an increased chance of blood pressure being raised and increased heart rate. This may lead to brain hemorrhage, which is stroke. It can cause angina, which is pain in the chest because of increased activity, and eventually it can cause heart attack. The second thing that if it affects is to stimulate the release of adrenaline, and it initiates the fight and flight response in a person who has smoked. This fight and flight response, this increases the heart rate of the person. Add this to the blood pressure, which is raised, so you can just see and correlate what's going to happen. The third thing, it causes the vessels of the limbs to undergo vasoconstriction, and this increases the blood pressure even more. So just key, this is having a cumulative effect. Increased heart rate, narrowed blood vessels, more adrenaline, and increased heart rate further. And the limbs vessel, they have undergone constriction, so this increases the blood pressure even further. So this, you are actually in turn just increasing the load on the heart more and more so. The other effect of nicotine is that there would be carbon monoxide coming because of the cigarette smoke. This is not just nicotine, this is carbon monoxide from the cigarette, and it will combine with hemoglobin. It would cause carboxyhemoglobin formation, which is a very stable compound. This renders the HB useless. So hemoglobin is useless. Less hemoglobin is available for oxygenation, and respiratory efficiency would be decreased. The person would lose a little stamina, the person would not have a lot of energy, and poor oxygenation of body. And in fact, carboxyhemoglobin can cause the carbon monoxide poisoning, and this can be fatal if there a high level of carbon monoxide is achieved in the blood. So furthermore, since we talked about nicotine being the drug, so it stimulates the reward centers in the brain. And what the reward centers are doing, reward centers in the brain, they have neurons. These neurons release a chemical called dopamine, and dopamine is the happy chemical. This is the smoker feels happy and rewarded. This chemical, it when it's released, this is the neural basis of addiction, and this makes the person has achieved something. There's the reward center starts to just work in the favor of the person. The more the person will get addicted to nicotine, so the person would keep on using increased number of cigarettes to stimulate the reward center and feel rewarded more and more and more, and just smoking brings about this reward, the feeling of being rewarded because the reward centers are activated, and this is again done by nicotine. So you can see which regions got affected, widespread effects. You can see cardiovascular system got affected, the gas exchange system of the smoker got affected, not just this, the endocrinological system, the hormonal system got affected, and the nervous system is affected as well. And we have not discussed what it increases the HCl in the stomach as well, but anyhow, so that was not discussed here. But yeah, it increases the HCl in the stomach as well, so it's affecting the digestive tract as well. Lastly, summing this all up, smoking, the smoke that the person is actually just exhaling out, there is a mainstream smoke and a side stream smoke. Mainstream smoke is the person smoking actively, and side stream of smoke is the passive smoking. the person who's smoking is smoking this mainstream smoke, this active smoke, and side stream is the person. This is more harmful. This you are exposed to the side stream, and you are a passive smoker if somebody in your surrounding is smoking, and there are more chances. There's more harmful. There's more chance that you are the someone who's just a passive smoker may suffer from smoking related disorders more than the smoker, because the smoker is actually smoking through the butt of the cigarette, and the butt of the cigarette is having a filter which prevents the lot of dirty substances going into the respiratory system of that individual, but the side stream will not have any filter, and like a fool you will be fooled, and probably a lot of chemicals and all these things will go on in your respiratory system, and you would never know that okay, passive smoking is even more harmful than the mainstream smoke. So yes, if you are a passive smoker, be alert, be very alert in your surroundings. Somebody smoking, be should make sure that you are in a very well ventilated place, or if not, then it's better just to move out of that space for some time and resume that whatever chat or discussion or whatever you're doing if the person was smoking in your presence in a non-ventilated area, because passive smoking is way more dangerous, and statistics have shown that passive smokers actually suffer from more of these diseases than active smoker would do, because the active smoker would eventually die from some other cause other than lung cancer, because the heart rate is so high, because the blood pressure is so high, the stroke is going to happen. And so yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you.